So when we talk about the greatest comebacks in Hollywood, Robert Downey Jr., a real-life Iron Man, don't forget to subscribe for more fun and fascinating content. One name stands above the rest. There are very few stories in Hollywood that feel larger than life. But Robert Downey Jr.'s journey isn't just a comeback, it's a resurrection. A tale of talent, turmoil, and ultimate triumph. Before he became Iron Man, before he became the face of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, Robert Downey Jr. was a cautionary tale. A star who burned too bright, too fast, and almost lost everything. Born in Manhattan in 1965, Robert was introduced to the world of cinema at a very young age. His father, Robert Downey Sr., was an underground filmmaker, and Robert's first appearance on screen was at just 5 years old. But that early exposure came at a cost. Robert's upbringing was chaotic, filled with art, yes, but also with substance abuse, instability, and little guidance. He later revealed that his father introduced him to drugs when he was just 8 years old. Imagine that, a child with a future so bright, being pulled into the darkness before he even knew how to escape it. As he grew older, his talent was undeniable. His charisma on screen was magnetic. He became one of the most promising young actors of his generation, receiving critical acclaim for films like Chaplin, where he portrayed Charlie Chaplin with such brilliance that he earned an Academy Award nomination. The world was watching. Hollywood had found its next great actor. But behind the scenes, his life was unraveling. Throughout the 1990s and early 2000s, Robert spiraled out of control. Arrested multiple times for drug possession. In and out of rehab. At one point, he broke into a neighbor's house while high and passed out in their child's bed. That wasn't a scene from a movie, that was his reality. And despite his talent, studios stopped hiring him. Insurance companies wouldn't back his projects. He had become a risk, a liability. His once promising career had crashed to the ground. And yet, somewhere in that darkness, a spark remained. Rock bottom isn't always the end. Sometimes, it's the beginning of something new. Something powerful. For Robert, hitting the bottom forced him to face himself. The pain, the guilt, the addiction, he didn't hide from it anymore. He got clean. He worked hard. He started over. But Hollywood doesn't forgive easily. Second chances are rare. That's where one man changed everything, director Jon Favreau. When Marvel was casting for Iron Man, the studio didn't want Robert Downey Jr. They thought he was too much of a risk. But Favreau saw something in him. He saw a man who understood Tony Stark not just as a character, but as a reflection of himself. A man who had made mistakes, lost it all, and was now trying to build something better. Favreau fought for him. Robert auditioned, and he didn't just act. He was Tony Stark. The arrogance, the charm, the vulnerability, it was real. It was raw. And it was perfect. In 2008, Iron Man was released. It was more than a superhero film. It was the rebirth of Robert Downey Jr. That film didn't just save his career. It launched the Marvel Cinematic Universe, one of the most successful film franchises in history. And at the center of it all was a man who just a few years before was considered finished. Over the next decade, Robert became not just Iron Man, but the emotional heart of the Avengers. Fans around the world connected with him. Not just because he was a great actor, but because his story was real. Every time Tony Stark fought for redemption, every time he tried to be better, it felt like Robert speaking through the character. It was personal. He wasn't acting. He was living. But Robert's comeback wasn't just about movies. He found love. In 2005, he married Susan Levin, a film producer who would become his rock. She stood by him, believed in him, and helped him stay grounded. Together, they built a life, one of stability, family, and purpose. Robert also became an advocate for recovery and mental health. He didn't hide his past. He owned it, spoke about it, and inspired others who were struggling, showing them that it's possible to climb out of the darkest hole if you're willing to fight for it. From drug addiction and jail cells to red carpets and billion-dollar franchises, his journey is nothing short of legendary. And when Tony Stark said, "I am Iron Man," it wasn't just a line. It was a declaration. A man who once had no control over his life now stood tall, owning his identity, his past, and his future. In 2019, when Avengers Endgame closed a chapter on Tony Stark's story, fans across the world cried. Not just for a fictional hero, but for the man who brought him to life. A man who proved that you can fall and rise again stronger. Robert Downey Jr. didn't just play a superhero. He became one. Not because he had a suit of armor, but because he found the strength within. His story teaches us that talent can take you far, but character brings you back. That failure is not the end, unless you let it be. And that no matter how lost you feel today, there's always a road back, if you're brave enough to walk it.